All right, welcome back to another episode of the Owner Ops Podcast. I'm your host, Austin Gray. I have a special guest and friend, Jake Pavelle, on. He is the owner of Colorado Power Wash. Jake took over Colorado Power Wash a couple months ago, earlier this summer, and he's already off to a fast start. So I'm excited to have you on, Jake. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to it, Austin. Thanks for having me.
So can you take us back to like that first phone call whenever you called me?
Yeah, I mean, it was much needed and in due time. I've been thinking about business ownership and entrepreneurship for the better part of a year, but couldn't really figure out the how part of it. And so path led me down just through some friends' recommendations to call you. And it transpired that I called you the day after. We were camping with them, and you mentioned what you had going on with Colorado Power Wash, and before even really thinking about it, I just remember telling you, like, yeah, let's roll. I'm in. Didn't second guess it. I was just like, yeah, I knew I wanted to do it, and that was a sign in my eyes that it was a path that I was meant to go down.
And that was like the point that I knew. I'm like, all right, Jake's for real. He's ready to go. And then, I mean, we're going to get into it throughout this episode. For those of you who are listening, like stick around for the whole show because Jake's going to talk about how he's started, how he's gone and got his first jobs, how he's selling jobs. I mean, you are off to a fast start, and it is so fun to watch. And so it's really interesting because a lot of people in that situation have reached out and they're like, look, I'm stuck in the corporate job. Like, I want to start this business, but I can immediately tell whether somebody's going to do it or whether they're not. And like, you are just so unbelievably committed at the beginning. We set up a win-win situation. You took that first lead and went and sold it pretty quickly after that. Got it.
The day after we talked.
It was awesome, man. So we'll get into that. But like, can you tell our listeners a little bit about like where you were before, and just like you mentioned, a year leading up to that, you had this, thought of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, so my dad, I grew up around him owning his landscape business for 32 years. So that draw, I mean, similar to you with your dad in construction, right? You grow up around that, and it's whether you realize it or not, that's innately inside you. Just that, you can't sometimes explain it, and but that drive was within me. And so, I mean, I was in corporate sales for 10 years out of college, and nothing ever seemed right to me. I've always felt like something was missing at every company I was working with. Even though I did really well, and everywhere I went, I just kind of pushed through and grinded and made it work. And I almost convinced myself every time that this is the place that I was meant to be. But in reality, I was still, not fully satisfied with where I was at. So was working for a company called BSN Sports at the time. I was with them for a little over 5 years. And my customers and clients were high school coaches and athletic directors and, school principals, superintendents, things like that. And so they would buy their team uniforms, their, athletic equipment, big and small, all the way up to, big gym floors and ceiling hung basketball hoops and big scoreboards. So it was a really wide scope of work, right? And when I was in those 5 years, I found that I really loved doing the big projects. And if I could only focus on selling the big projects, then, maybe that would be satisfactory to me. But because of the business structure, you had to have all the other things along with it. And yeah, so it was just, and so I translating that into Colorado Power Wash, and we can get into this here in a second. But I've found myself just right off the bat trying to focus on the big projects because I like the challenge of it, and I like the big wins. And of course, the payout's nice when you get them. But you really kind of develop those true and trusted partnerships with those big projects because you're more invested in it, and you will do. I mean, with anything you do with your own business, you're going to make it perfect as perfect as it can be. But especially with the big projects, you're going to want to make sure that it's going to go smoothly, because then it'll for sure lead to future opportunities and contracts and partnerships with big companies and corporations.
So let's talk day one. You take over Colorado Power Wash, and we'll give everybody a little bit of backstory here. So I had a website, Colorado Power Wash, that Bodie and Andy, our SEO guys, and I had been working on it. We took this concept of like, okay, we can go pick this niche, create the website, and then do the marketing around it. And like we had this theory that like we could just go ahead and drive leads. And so I was actually like keeping this one in the quiver for just a future business, maybe like later on down the line, after 5 years or something, we get Bear Claw humming, and then like was just keeping it in the quiver. And then you called, and I'm like, dude, you're ready to rock and roll. And so at that point, it had kicked off a lead. I believe it was somewhere within like the week before. It was a pretty recent lead, because I remember specifically mentioning that, and you were like, I'll go talk to him right now. And
I literally picked up the phone and called him after we got off the phone.
It was like before we even had a deal done, and you just like went and got it done. And I'm like, man, this is awesome, because this dude is taking action. And I think that's like the most important thing in these small service-based businesses. It's like, if you just show up and block and tackle and do the little things, then it just leads to good things. And I want to get into that. So let's talk that. You call that first lead. Can you tell us about how that went?
Oh, I mean, I was like, I don't even know. I was just kind of like blacked out for a second, because I was like, shoot, like this is really happening. Like I drove there. I was wearing, I think I was wearing a button down, like a button down shirt from Tom James, and tucked into some jeans, and I was rolling up. And, the guy that I met was, was really, he was probably the best person I could have met as a first potential, as a first prospect, because he is actually a small business owner as well, with a little marketing agency. So we had really good rapport. But I mean, he was asking me questions, and asking like some details about stuff, and I was like, man, I would love to answer those for you right now. I don't have those specific answers, so I'll get them for you, and get back to you within 24 hours. And I just think that type of transparency is always important, and it says a lot about the type of person that you are. But yeah, I mean, I was felt like I had ants in my pants a little bit before I was going in there. But yeah, I mean, he really liked me, and spoke highly of me to his superior. And I think a week or two later, we had the contract to do the fleet washing every other month. So yeah, it's been great, and backed it up with great work on the first time, and then they keep bringing me opportunities as well. So which is another nice thing about commercial clients, is that they'll find other ways for you to service their business and facilities.
So something I've loved about interacting with you from a business perspective here is like you just take consistent action,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not afraid to go figure it out. And so for the people listening here, like Jake, it's not like Jake had prior power washing experience. But I think the important thing was that you were willing to go meet with the person. You were willing to just get in front of them, and you were honest and transparent with them. And I think that goes so far in building relationships, especially in your local market. Can you talk us through? All right, so that's like day one. What do you do next? Your head go?
I was just trying to wrap my mind around the systems, really, to begin with. And yeah, like, what is next? Like, you take over, you become a business owner, like, what do you do next? And I was thinking to myself the next day, shoot, I don't really know about like all the equipment that's needed, because it's going to be more than just a simple pressure washer that you buy at Home Depot, right? Um, and what I've learned is that there are a lot of intricacies and little products you need that make a difference on the job. So what I ended up doing that Friday after we talked, Austin, there's a power equipment store up in Commerce City, which is, northeast of Denver. And I drove up there on a Friday afternoon at 3:30. And I went in there and asked their counter guy. I was like, "Hey man, look, I never been in here before. I am like pretty much brand spanking new into the power washing business. Can you give me like would you be open to giving me just a rundown 101 course on how this stuff works just so you can educate me?" And he was like, "Sure." He spent an hour and a half with me on a Friday afternoon just running me through all the ins and outs of how things worked. And then the following Friday, I went back again for a 201 course, and he spoke at a higher level about how things work and the different types of machines and the pros and the cons of operating certain types of units. So that's what I did next. I just was educating myself and finding the what's interesting is I find like when you're so committed to something and you want to do something, you'll find out how to get it done. Like your mind just turns on that creative switch, and an idea will pop into your mind, randomly, and you're like, "Oh, I should probably do that. Like that's a good idea." And then if you go do it, then you'll be better off than you were before. So that's what I did next. Long story short.
Incredible. I love it. You are figuring it out along the way. So let's talk. All right. So here we are. August? What is this? August 16th. What day did you take over? It was sometime.
May 28th, I think it was.
Okay, so let's call it 1st of June.
Mm.
So you've had like 2 full operating months under your belt. And that first, how many days was it from the time you took over the website to the time you did your first job?
So my first job was July 10th.
Okay.
It was a house wash with oxidation removal, which is probably the most difficult, one of the most difficult things you can do for your first job, I would think.
All right. So how did you had a month in there where you were just like figuring this stuff out. At that time, you still had your job, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So I mean, from 0 to 60 in 1 month, like this is impressive. And I want to extract like where your mind was in this first month. Like I'm sure there were a million things going around. Like, man, I got to figure this out, but then I got to figure this out, but I got to figure out this before this, and then this and this, and put all the pieces together, right?
Uh-huh.
So where was your mind in that first month?
Oh, it was scattered, man. I mean, you probably could have picked up on that with how much I was hitting you up too during that first month. Just with the all the little like admin things, right? That I am horrible at figuring out, like Google and like setting up Google Business and just all like those little things and getting your CRM, getting automations, because I want to have a strong foundation, right? Before I really get cranking, because I don't want to get into a spot where things are moving so fast and I become disorganized, which I mean, that's not the way I can't operate at a high level with that. So yeah, it was just, there were so many things coming in at one time, in addition to still having my day job, right? So that was a huge mental roadblock for me, because I would be spending a whole day doing power washing and figuring things out on the computer. And then I'd be like, oh crap, I keep getting calls in from my daily job. And so then I would be on my computer, later that night for a couple hours or a few hours to keep up with emails. And I would, return calls after that, or the following day. So yeah, it was just a lot, like a lot to manage at one time. And I mean, looking back on it, I don't know if I did a great job of staying organized, but I got through it. And here we are, 2.5 months later.
How did you find that first job?
So that one, Cinia and I, Cinia is my wife, if for those who don't know, her and I were on our way to the mountains, in fact, again on a Friday afternoon. And I got a call from a number that I didn't recognize. And so I answered it, and it ended up being a woman who found us on Google. And, she was looking to, and this is at 5:30 on a Friday, right? So it wasn't during quote unquote normal business hours, and so she said she needed to have her house washed on a Saturday, or she was hoping to have it done like the day after we talked. And so again, I told her, we would love to do it, but I'm sorry, like my wife and I are in the mountains right now for the weekend with her family. Could we come by Sunday on our way back home to do a site visit and get a tour of your property so we can see the scope of work, and we'll give you an estimate same day, and see if we can't earn a shot at your business. And so she was like, yeah, that's fine, that's fine. So we drove back home from Leadville, and went straight to her house, and it was probably Sunday at 1 o'clock. And so we just toured the property and gave her the price, and I upsold her on the oxidation stuff, even though I had no idea what that was at the time. I just heard it from a video. But again, you figure it, you just figure it out. But it turned out great, man. They were super happy. Like it was really, really good.
That's incredible. I love it.
That's
Okay, so
funny.
you do that one. That's your first revenue in the bank account.
Yeah.
How do you go get the second one?
So the second one, and so like in this time, right? Like while these leads are coming in, I'm actively contacting like my network, right? And so I had friends who know realtors, so I contacted our realtor, and because he offices at a business building in DTC, which is Denver Tech Center, kind of in the heart of Denver. For those who are not in the Denver area, and so he was like, "Yeah, we just had some pressure washing done in our garage a few months ago, and so you might contact our property manager." So he gave me her contact information, and so I picked up the phone and called her and told her that I got her name from our realtor. His name's Kevin Chambliss, and he mentioned that you guys had some pressure washing done, and I own a business here in the area. Was interested to see if you'd be opposed to us providing a quote for some services in the area. And so she was like, "Oh yeah, I mean, interestingly enough, we have had a bad experience with the current company that we were using. So um, let's set up a meeting." And so I went there to go see her and met with like their building engineer and their assistant property manager, and we walked the building, and I jotted down areas that we spoke about, and so like in the midst of some leads coming in from Google, which I've found has been, at least in the short in the first 3 months, that's where most people have been finding us, is on Google. So I've been actively going after and meeting with property managers and business building, strip centers, retail centers, things like that. So while Josh and Jana are doing the Facebook ads targeting like residential clients for the most part, I'm actively going after the commercial properties, which is what I have, experience in personally, just from my work experience. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. And I believe it's a very important piece because I've found the same thing in our business. Like sometimes just reaching out to those property managers, like if you think about it, a property management company, if you offer a service, a property management company is an absolute gold mine because they hold the keys. So if they manage the condos, the HOAs, the big apartment buildings, like here they manage like larger neighborhoods, and they control the budget for everything. So, if you're looking for landscaping, they're going to go find that complex a landscaper, or they're going to go find that complex a power washer, or they're going to go find snow removal for that complex. And so rather than going to the building owner, just going straight to the property manager sometimes can be a huge unlock. And we've seen that in our business as well.
Mhm.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because it's been a similar experience. A lot of times, the thing about service businesses here is like the bar is set low a lot of times. And so if you come in and you're willing to do sales well and meet with the people and develop relationships and then commit to delivering 5-star service, they're oftentimes open to making a switch. And so
Mhm.
after you texted me all those pictures of the parking garage, I'm like, dude, you are going to blow this thing up because you are on the right track. Like, and it's so cool to watch. So you reach out to the property managers, you get some interest there. Now I know that you completed one of those because I've seen the pictures. So can you tell the listeners, like, take us through the story of when you first contacted the property manager to when did one of those jobs transpire?
Yeah, so it took about a month to bring it all to fruition, and so that included, them getting me their contract to sign, me getting my insurance figured out, right? Because I had no idea what type of insurance I needed, so I was just playing like, oh, I got to get my insurance updated. When in reality, I had to get my insurance at the time, and so it took about a month from start to finish, and so we ended up, so they do service agreement over a 3-year period, right? So we have a 3-year agreement to take care of their power washing services for this property. That includes their parking garage, which is like 250,000 square feet. So like, it's a big garage. And then like their loading dock, their front, their north and south entrances, and then some any other things that they need quoted outside of those specific areas of the scope of work. So I mean, of course, 500,000 square feet is a lot, right? And like one person can't do that on their own, or else they'll be staying out there for an entire week. So what's interesting is, and again, just through me figuring it out, I was calling around to, like, even when I started, right? Like in the first month I started, I was calling around to other power washing companies in the area to see if anyone would be open to acting as somewhat of a mentor figure to me, to help me, learn the business a little bit, learn how things work and operate. I only got a call back from, or I only talked to one other, like I guess two other companies that I still keep in touch with today. And so the one company in Denver, they've really been a huge help for me, and I hope that I can that I've been of service to them as well. But so they came on and helped me with that job. They brought, it was the owner and then another one of their guys. They brought two other machines with them, and we, like, when they rolled up, like, they were shocked at how big it was. They were like, "Dude, this is a big job." Like and I initially misquoted it, and so the owner, we just have a really good open relationship, and he was like, "Yeah, you need to try and get some more money for that thing because you really underquoted that." And I was like, "Okay, good to know." And so yeah, we just rolled out and knocked it out over 2 nights, and we did it with quality. um especially for that price, because and again, like, it's not like it was dirt cheap, right? Like it was a competitive price at the price that we ended up getting it for. And the property managers were fine, because I ended up having to have a difficult conversation with that property manager and be like, "Hey, look, I am terribly sorry. I really misquoted this kind of badly, and um, we need to adjust the price a little bit with the additional labor that we're going to have to complete this job in an efficient manner. The new price is going to be this." And she was like, that's fine. Yeah, just get it done. We'll revise it on our side, and um, we look forward to you guys doing the work. And she's like, "Thanks for letting us know." And I was like, "Okay." I mean, that went better than I expected. So I mean, the first job was really just a big learning curve, right? Like with the guys that were on the job, they wanted it to be an educational experience for me, because they knew that I was, relatively green in the business. And so we were just in there, knocking it out, and I was helping as best as much as I could with the power washing, and also doing all the little things that people don't think about with overnight jobs, which is like, where are you going to supply food? Do you have enough gas? What do you do if you run out of gas? Like, who's going to go get it? Are you disconnecting your machines? where are your machines going to be located for a big parking garage like that? Do you have enough hose? Is your oil good for the machine to be running 8 to 10 hours back to back nights type of thing? So like consecutive hours. So like, all those little things just really made a big impact, and they still are, because it's helped me be more efficient and understand how these bigger jobs work, which is going to set me up for success. Because a lot of guys that get in the business, they just focus on the residential side, and you see it all the time on YouTube, or in comment sections, like, how do you do these commercial jobs? How do you get them? Like, how do you just get them done? And with the help of others, right? Because you can't do anything by yourself. You got to have a team behind you and people in place. But with the help of them, it's allowed me the ability to understand how these big jobs work.
Man, I'm so excited for you. This is awesome to watch. Sounds like you've got the team in place if you can go get these big jobs. And
Hmm.
will they continue to help you fulfill?
Yeah. Like,
Sweet.
I've talked. I mean, I've talked to the owner of this company daily. He's the nicest guy ever. Like, when I first talked to him, it was the day before 4th of July, and I met with a guy that needed some work done by that following Friday, and Cindy and I were going out of town. He was like, "Yeah, man, like, we can come in and do it. Like, we specialize in these quick turn kind of jobs." And like, we talked on the phone for the first time for 30 minutes, right? And he's had his business for 25 years, so of course he's got a lot going on. And so the fact that he took 30 minutes of his time to talk with me and start to develop a relationship, which is key for him with other power washing companies, because it's like, in his mind, it's a like, we're all one team, we're all one community. We need to be there to support one another and help each other grow, to raise the bar in an industry that has relatively low standards for the most part. So yeah, like, we've just developed a great relationship. He considers me a part of his team. I, of course, consider them a part of my team, and so yeah, I can lean on them for whenever I have those big jobs come up to help me out.
Sounds like you are building the business model very similar to how my business coach, Les O'Hara, coaches other people in other trades.
Is that
He is
right?
he is the sales and marketing and back office. And it's very similar to how a lot of the roofing companies operate. It's you find your good subcontractors, and if you can go do the marketing, sales, and back office, billing and invoicing, manage the relationships exactly like what you're doing, I think it could be a really good route for you. I
Hmm.
do also want to introduce you to, and this podcast episode will be publishing soon. I had a guy named Brandon Dixon on last week, and so it'll be like 3 weeks until that episode is published. But I'll introduce you to him before, because he's doing something well. So he just retired from the MLB. He bought a street sweeping business out in California, and he's very similar to you. Like, just had the mindset of figuring it out. And he just kept that mindset the whole time. And one thing he has leaned into is cold email or cold outreach. So he's pulled all of this data from, he texted me some of the sources that he's using. But I want to have him back on to do a cold outreach strategy, because I do think it is something that if you linked up with him on that and figured out what he's doing, like, he's sending, I want to say it's like 500 emails, 1,000 emails a week. I don't remember, so I'm butchering the numbers, but
Hmm.
it's like all over the state of California. And his goal is to go like double down on building the relationships with those property managers. So, anyways, I love that model of what you're doing. Can you talk us through, like you mentioned that you were low on the bid? Can you talk us through general numbers for something like that on a 500,000 square feet of pressure washing?
Yes. So it's gonna. And by the way, I'd love to link up with. Was it Brian? Is that Brian Dixon?
Brandon Dixon.
Brandon Dixon. Yeah, because just to touch on that real quick, yeah, like cold outreach and just that level of sales and marketing strategy. It's not really existent in these types of businesses. So I've just found the more you contact them, it's been paying off a little bit. So, but yeah, as far as pricing, if you're looking online, there's national app for house washing, concrete cleaning, roof cleaning, gutter cleaning, power washing services, anything that you like in this space. It's so dependent on the scope of work and the space itself, because it's not cookie cutter. It's going to depend on, if you guys got to do oil removal or like restoration work or rust restoration, or how clean are they going to want it? Right? Because if they, I can't say specifically on like how much that job was, just for the contractual obligations, but it was it was on the lower end of the competitive bids, let's say that. But it was still a little bit more than what they were getting their services done for initially. And we backed it up with quality work. So when they walked in, or when they drove into the garage, the concrete was, sparkling. It was really, really, really good. So yeah, I mean, as far as pricing goes, it's really tough to say, because those questions are tossed around everywhere, but it really depends on your market. And I'm with my business, I don't want it to be a commodity, right? Like I'm not going to be the type that's going to have a quoting system online where someone can plug in their numbers and click calculate, and then it gives them a price. And then, because what they'll do is they'll take that price and then go call somebody else or go do the same thing on someone else's website. And so, yeah, we're not going to be the most in, in the Denver area or in Colorado, because we back it up with the professionalism, the value, what you get for the service, like the quality of work, the like the personalization of the service, meeting in person, sending a little text anytime, you see their property and be like, hey, just drove by. Hope you're having a great day. There's little things like that make a more expensive service valuable, like more valuable than someone who's going to do it for the least amount of money. Right. And that's where I feel so many businesses in this space, and just any service business for that matter, fall into that trap of trying to beat the lowest possible price. But it'll come back to bite them.
Definitely. So I'm going to go back through my text messages here because I remember seeing pictures of several different things. You've got dumpster bin here. You've got retail shopping center here. You got like another trash area. I see a Starbucks here. So you've done other commercial type jobs since then as well. So can you talk to us about how you got those and how those transpired?
They've all been cold outreach, cold calls. Like that one with the retail center, that's just across the street from our house. And it's funny, like I went into the to the liquor store one day. Like we don't drink, but I know one of the guys that works there. And yeah, I walked up, and like there's bird poop everywhere, and just looked gross and not well kept. And our area is growing rapidly. They're building a huge community around where we're at. And so I walked in there, and fortunately enough, he was there. And I told him what I was doing. And, I said I had a power washing business. And he was like, oh, dude, the sidewalks are disgusting. There's bird poop everywhere. Like, I hate it. I was like, okay, cool. Like, I mean, how can I get the best contact for the property manager, or, anyone that who I could contact? And so he jotted down an email and a phone number for, I think it was the property manager's assistant, who he has direct contact with. And so I called her. She passed the word along to, and I followed up with an email after we talked on the phone, explaining what we were doing. And then she forwarded that to the property manager. And then he replied back, like, yeah, like we're actually looking to get quotes for power washing right now. Can you provide some prices for X, Y, and Z? So I ended up doing a full scope of work, right? Like breaking all the services down. So like cleaning the sidewalks, doing the dumpsters, doing like degreasing of the sidewalks. So like all just various things on a monthly level, but also as a total annual service that we could provide. And yeah, so and again, like with my experience, you have to follow up with them consistently. You can't just send the quote and expect them to hit you back. Like you got to be the first they think about, from what I've found, and the first one to bring the solution to them. And so we just kind of stayed in contact over the 3 weeks or so that they were weighing the options. And yeah, he ended up giving us the work because he liked the fact that I was that Cindy and I were in this community, and he liked supporting local businesses, and the other ones were franchises and this and that. And I was like, yeah, let's go. And so yeah, we ended up getting it and did some good work. And yeah, I did it by myself too, which is crazy. It's spent the nights out there 2 nights in a row till 4 a.m. just power washing, but it was cool.
You're a savage, man. I got those texts and you're like, yeah, was up till 4 a.m. last night. I'm like, this dude just crushing it. Like, and it's just, I don't know, like, everybody, especially around here, like everybody's so into the like, oh, work-life balance. Like it's like there is no balance. Like once you just accept that in the beginning, it's
Yeah.
like I'm starting a business. Like I'm gonna do whatever it takes. And anyways, I don't want to get off on that rant. I just it's like that was part of the reason of this, like the mission behind this podcast is just to showcase people who are willing to take action. Because I think like all of us, myself included, especially when I was in my 20s, it's like we just fall into this trap of like content consumption. It's like, oh, I want to do that, I want to do that, or like that would be so cool to do. And it's just like shiny object after shiny object. And then what happens is like I just see so many people still to this day just like falling into that trap of not taking action. But you just
Mhm.
finally set the foot down and said, "No, I'm doing this." And then like
Yeah.
once you made that decision, it's been so cool to watch because you're actually doing it and you're just making it work. And
Hmm.
sometimes it's gonna take the 4 a.m. nights. And I'm sure you were tired after that, right?
Yeah. Dude,
But
but it was fun.
right.
It was fun. Like, I mean, you're out there with the night owls, who are still working. Like I was like hanging out with like overnight stalkers at Safeway while they were outside smoking a cigarette, and they were just shooting the breeze with me, and I was like, dude, what is happening?
But the
Um,
whole time you're just running off adrenaline, right?
yeah, you are like, but the whole time I'm thinking to myself, like, man, I'm so glad I'm not sitting in front of my computer answering emails right now, or I have like a manager watching over my shoulder. Like I can just do this how I want and get it done. And I got my music in and just cranking it out. But yeah, you're tired like for the next day or two. But when you look back on it, and I think this is the thing that I loved about the power washing business, because I really love working with my hands, first of all. And I also love seeing like, I get very proud of seeing the before and after work that I do. And so, like, going by the shopping center, I'm like, yeah, I cleaned that. That's sick. Let's do it again. Because, yeah, it was long nights, but it was fun.
How much of that do you believe is attributed to growing up with a dad who owned a landscaping business or a business in the services?
I mean, I think it's huge, right? Because like, I saw the level of care that he had, even if like the one small thing went wrong, he just jumped on it and wanted to make it right with the customer, would work until he felt he was at a good stopping point. But at the same time, he still gave the fatherly attention to us. He didn't let his, and I think that's so important too, because you can get so consumed in something. It's different when you're starting out, I think, because you got to give your all to it and commit that time. But as you develop and your business grows, I'm always going to have, I know I'm going to have to remind myself that when, Cindy and I have a baby, to be sure that I'm provide like giving my fatherly duties to that child. And so my father did that to my sister and me. But yeah, like it's one thing to be around like parents who are in that corporate environment, just running the corporate ladder and just going from 9 to 5 or 9 to 6, whatever it is. But it's totally different ball game seeing you're being raised by a father and a mother who owned a business basically. So just different level for sure.
Yeah, I've thought about that a lot recently, just like because I feel that same way. It's like whenever I was starting and whenever I was doing a lot of the work, it's so satisfying to see the
Hmm.
before and after.
Yeah.
Because there is nothing better than getting a genuine 5-star review from that person because you
Hmm.
know that you gave your absolute all. Like, look, I was out there till 4 a.m. last night getting every single spot. Like, I'm giving you zero room for error to give me anything less than a 5-star review.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's great, man. And just seeing the words that people write about you on the reviews, um, it's like I think it's memorable for them too, right? Like just with the effort and the effort that we put forward, and yeah, it's just gratifying. You feel proud when you get the 5-star review and read the words. Like you can't help but smile. It's awesome. I'm sure you feel the same way still to this day. 3 years into Bear Claw.
I was going to ask you, like, because like every time we win a deal, I still just get this big rush or like this big high, and then it just carries over. And I really do think like as we've grown, that's the hardest part. Because I'm behind the computer a lot more now, and yeah, we've had those conversations internally. But I think the hardest part first was like letting go of the field stuff because I really do enjoy that, like working with the hands. Um,
Hmm.
and then secondly, it was like letting go of the sales because there is a big high that comes from getting those deals. And anyways, I think that's just part of growth, right? It's like right
Yeah.
now in this phase, I'm challenging myself to just focus on areas that I haven't focused on before and find some ways to challenge in areas that need focus within the business. And so I just think it changes throughout time. But can you tell us about any of the other jobs that you have completed or you have currently in the pipeline right now?
Yeah, so I mean, I got quite a bit in the pipeline that's out there. That's really so like the last 2 weeks, I've just had my business development hat on, and so I've just been doing sales activity, and again, taking action and 10xing my activity instead of just waiting for leads to come into me. I'm going out. I'm actively going out and trying to take it and get it. So we have an opportunity with Walmart in Denver, to do monthly service for them, and so that's a big one. And then I'm working on like three other like commercial property quotes at the time. So yeah, that's what's in the pipeline, and it's probably like if any of those land, like one of them, one commercial property company, they have a contract for window cleaning, but they've never like had any power washing services done to clean up their sidewalks or dirt, debris, oil, rust, things like that. And they manage 20 properties across Denver, and so that would be a massive win. Their budget, since they haven't done it before, their budget per property may not be as high, but it could generate some nice revenue. The Walmart one would be a great one, and I'm super proud of that. Like about what I did, like looking back on it, and I'm going to continue this. And I can, if you don't have something like this, I'd be more than happy to share it. But with Walmart, I wanted to dress it up a little bit. I wanted to make it look nice and professional and set myself to a new bar. So I was driving home one night and I thought of an idea to put together a nice little spiral bound pamphlet. 8 by 8.5 by 11 with a nice cover page, Walmart and Colorado Power Wash on it, nice and big with the date on the upper right hand corner. And then like a table of contents with an about us section, about Colorado Power Wash, about some a little paragraph about me and Senya, what we like doing. So it just develops a better relationship with the person that they have on the other side of the phone or whoever. And why should they choose us? With bullet points listed out of why companies choose us, our ambitions for working for Walmart, so why we would like to work with Walmart and what we hope to gain out of it. And then also, a bird's eye view of the property with highlighted areas, explaining the scope of work, some before and after photos of work that we done, the estimate, and then contact information. So it's about like 12, 13 pages all in one. But I printed it off in color at FedEx, put a nice navy with our on each page in the header, and printed off 2 copies, hand delivered it to the Walmart store manager that I met with on Sunday. And she was like, yeah, I'll be in the store on Wednesday. I mean, you can feel free to bring a quote by if you want. And so I was like, sick, I'll see you on Wednesday. And so I brought these 2 copies to her, and she loved it. She loved it. She was like, this isn't the first time you've done this before, is it? And I was like, no, man, it's not. But in the back of my head, I'm like, it sure freaking is, baby. But she was like, this is so helpful because I need all this information when I go present it to the board and to the people that help me make these decisions. So thank you. She was very genuine about it. She said she'll have it. And she was like, looks like this other company has some competition now, doesn't it? And I was like, yeah, sure does. Let's roll. And so, yeah, she said she's going to let me know. She's going to contact me on Friday. But I was like, when I was floored, dude, I was like on an ultimate high because I was so proud of seeing that extra effort. Again, 10xing your action, right? Like, how are you going to be different from somebody else? What are you willing to do to really separate yourself? And it's little things like that they're not going to get from anybody else.
How much did you spend on that?
It was $30, took maybe 2.5, 3 hours of time to really make it look good and, spell check it and edit it and all that. But yeah, not like no time at all, really.
And now you have the template to do it over and over
Exactly.
again.
Exactly.
How did you create that? What software did you use?
I just use Google Doc.
Really?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yep. So, I mean, I can send you it if you want.
Is that something you'd be willing to put make a template of and put in the copy of the show notes for anybody else listening? As far as just like if you just took the brand, or put a placeholder for the brand, like took the actual customer details off and we just templatized it.
Yeah. Yeah, I can do that. I think it'd be really helpful because for the community that we have, I mean, we're all trying to level each other up, and this would be, I mean, and you don't have to do it for everybody, right? It's just for the ones that you really want to put put wrapping paper on a little bow to dress it up.
So my coach Les talks about this. It's pretty much every time we meet at this point. He's like, where's your dream 100? He calls it dream 100. So he's like, you need to be actively managing a dream 100 list of like, who are your dream clients? Like, just get as crazy as you can think of right now. Like, who would be the absolute ideal clients or companies that you go offer your service to? If you had 10 of those 100, like, what would that do to your business? And so, like, that's where my head's going on right now. It's like the level of effort you're putting in right now is what I internally need to do and put more time and take a play out of your book here and put some extra time and effort into this, and then go get that stuff in front of our dream 100. I love that.
Yeah. I mean, and I just thought about, because I did that in sales school in college, right? Like we had to give a written and oral presentation, and just again, when you're focused on something, you think creatively. And so that idea just popped in there. And I was like, damn, that's it. That's a good idea. See how it works. But I mean, nothing's set in stone yet. But I think that that she liked it, and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I'd be more than happy to share it. I was going to text you about it earlier this week, but I figured since we were going to do the podcast today, I'm sure we'll touch on that a little bit.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you for being willing to do that. If you don't mind to send that over just with like a shareable link, then we'll put that in the show notes whenever we publish this. One thing we haven't touched on is you did a fleet wash for what was it, 28 vehicles? Or
yeah 28, 27.
Can you tell us how that went? Because that was an early job too, right?
Yeah, well, that was the lead that was in there before you and I talked initially. So it was with I don't want to just for the reason I don't want to say the client, but yeah, it was 27 vehicles all around Denver. Spent my Saturday, and so we have them set up on a every other month washing. And so I spent my Saturday a couple weeks ago doing the first one, and it turned out awesome, man. Yeah, their manager was so happy, as was their lead fleet driver. They were blown away. And again, I was like throughout the process when I was doing it, I couldn't believe, it was almost surreal that I was doing it. And getting just that affirmation that I'm doing a good job, like immediately after sending some photos to them via text. So like throughout it, I was just like, man, I'm doing it. Like this is awesome. And so, I mean, it's just really been we built a really solid relationship with this company, and I'm going to see them later this afternoon for some beers to talk about some other stuff that we're going to do, another idea that they have as a possible opportunity for us to do some work together. They called me out a couple weeks ago to do some interior detailing of two of their trucks because they were super dirty. And so again, I was like, man, I've never done it before, but I'll figure it out and really make it look good. And they turned out great. And it's just fun on the yeah. And I think one thing that people are scared to do is just say yes, right, and figure it out. But if people come into a situation that they haven't done before, that they're uncomfortable doing, they may be a little apprehensive to saying yes and not doing it versus doing it and figuring it out. But now it's just an additional service that I can offer the any fleet companies. Like, yeah, I can detail your trucks if you want, be an extra however many dollars. And it's just one-stop shop, baby.
That is awesome. That is unbelievably awesome. I'm going to be really interested to hear if you guys can figure out how to take some of that content and run ads specifically to that person. Because I believe, and I know that y'all are running it on the residential side, and I know we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but I'm still bullish on, I'm bullish on Facebook being able to put the ad in front of the right person. And I do believe that if you took some of that and called it out, hey, do you manage a fleet of vehicles at your business, or manage a company fleet, and then just like showcase some real quick stuff and run ads to that? I do think that would be interesting. So I'm interested to hear feedback from you and Josh on if that would pan out, because, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, that's got to be one of your, like, if you had that contract 10, 20, 30 times over, or 10 or 20 or 30 different of those contracts recurring every other month fleet wash, those are probably pretty good contracts, right?
Yeah. And then that's the thing about commercial work. And I was thinking about this too, like when I got the first commercial property manager or property manager company contract, you only need a handful of those, like 25 to 50 to 75, like in that realm, to really make a solid business. Whereas with resident and the frequency of those jobs isn't as much as residential, right? So you can do, I don't know, you can be washing 10 days out of like 10 nights out of the month every month and make like double or triple or sometimes even quadruple what you can make at a residential job. And then you with residential jobs, you have to have 3 to 5 of those a day to come close to making what you would make with the commercial jobs. And I'm not about that. I'd rather instead of like hustling around to a bunch of residential houses every day, I'd rather just take a few nights during the month and go wash and have the rest of the nights to do this and business development and whatever else comes with it. That's just my personal preference, but
I'm in agreement with you as well. I know you guys you don't have a ton of equipment, but like mobilizing equipment in our business is the biggest cost. So we
mhm,
try to it's like, how long can we keep our equipment on one job? Well,
yeah,
sorry, that kind of came out wrong because it's more like, of course, we're trying to be efficient while we're on the job and get the job done efficiently.
yeah,
But how can we book jobs that keep our equipment in one place for 1 month rather than one day?
correct.
Because the mobilization, I mean, especially whenever you start getting people on payroll, it's like, oh my gosh, we are paying everybody today to drive equipment for a whole full day, and we're not generating any revenue, right,
Mhm,
of moving this stuff. And so, yeah, I
yeah,
think your head's in the right track because I see some of those residential guys going from job to job. I'm like, you guys are like that to me. I see that and I'm like, that's the definition of hustling, right? It's like you
yeah,
are moving so fast, throwing the stuff in the truck in the van, screaming to the next job, calling the
yeah,
customer, I'll be here, I'll be there.
yeah.
Like it's
I hit traffic. I'm gonna be a few minutes late. Oh, and then your whole day's shot after that. Like, yeah, man. I mean, I'm with my corporate jobs, I did that, right? Like that was the type of hustling that you were doing. And if I could just stay on one job for a couple days and just go to that one location in the evening, man, I'm a happy camper. So that's
yeah,
that's yeah, that's my focus.
the clothing sales that man, I was watching you guys do that. I'm like, that schedule would suck.
That was nonstop, man. Nonstop.
But everybody there definitely hustles. Like
They
I have
do.
mad respect for everybody who does that job.
It was definitely not time wasted for sure for me. I mean, I'm still using skills that I developed over there and to this day. And same with my most recent job too. So every step of the way, you gain layers of experience, and it sets you up for success.
So, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners as far as starting a business goes? I mean, just kind of as a recap here, you took over, let's call it like 1st of June into May, and you're June, July, really like 2.5 full months in here. You're already off to a good start. You've already got commercial jobs under your belt. You've already performed services. You've figured out like a subcontracting relationship. You're doing sales well. You're experimenting. We didn't even get into this, but you're experimenting with marketing on the back end with some Facebook ads. You kind of have a baseline for SEO. What else have we missed here?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's all just about action, man. It really is. Like in the day-to-day work, like all the marketing and the advertising, the setup, the sales and marketing, like anything that goes into it. But when I look back on the really last 5 6 years of my life personally, I've realized, and I think I gained some clarity in this with the book that I'm reading right now. But I've just with the successes that I've had, I've earned those because of my input. I've never waited for things to come to me. I've actively gone out and tried to find them without worrying about the competition. Like I don't care about the competition personally. I'm not focused on them. I'm just focused on what I'm doing because there's plenty of business to go around. Like it's important to kind of know who your competitors are. Um, but I'm not giving them any mental energy at all. Like I know there's other power washing companies around here, but you know, they're not me, they're not us. So I'm not going to give them the time of day. Because there's way more important things to worry about. So that, yeah, it takes more energy and effort than you think. It really does. And it's if you want it to work quickly. Like you got to be 10xing your input all the time in everything that you do, from prospecting to calls. Like instead of calling 5 people, call 50 people. Instead of dropping by one business building and saying that you met with one property manager, drop by 5 or 10 throughout the day, and then say you met with 5 property managers. So the more input that you give the business, the more output you'll receive, and the more opportunities that you'll have, the more pipeline growth you'll have. And then in turn, the more sales that you have, the more experience you'll have quoting, the more experience you'll have on jobs. So, I feel like a lot of people, when they start their own business, they think it's a great idea. They don't understand how much work is involved and what needs to be put into it to really fast track it and make it work. So, yeah, that's all I would say about that. Is just take big action and get it done.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being on, Jake. This has been a lot of fun, and I'm excited to bring you back on in 6 to 12 months. The one thing we are doing right now is we're going back through people we've brought on in the first 40 episodes. So here's kind of a quick update for those of you guys who are listening right now. We recorded 40 episodes over the winter. We dripped those out each week, and we had people like Jake on who were in the early days of starting a service business. And now what we're doing is we're bringing those people back on and scheduling them out 6 to 12 months later. And what this is going to do is it's going to give people who are listening and wanting to start a business a good, accurate depiction of what it's like early on and then 6 to 12 months in. So I would love to schedule you for, let's call it sometime in the winter here when things slow down a little bit for both of us. We'll just see how the rest of the summer went and how you're thinking about winter. But I
Yeah,
do appreciate you making time to be on.
absolutely, man. Always good talking to you, brother.
Yeah. And listeners, thanks again for listening to another episode of the Owner Ops Podcast. If you are listening on Spotify or Apple, we would sure appreciate a 5-star review. Building a podcast is very similar to building a service-based business in the sense that 5-star reviews are really important. So if you have been enjoying these episodes, take a quick 30 seconds. We would really appreciate it. And if you're listening on YouTube, we'd really appreciate it if you'd like and subscribe to the channel. Leave us in the comments below if you have anybody you know specifically who you'd like us to bring on the podcast. Our ideal guests, people like Jake, who have started a business from the ground up, who are actively providing a service to their local community. So if you know somebody, leave those in the comments below, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Don't forget, work hard, do your best, never settle for less. Thanks again. I wanted to introduce you to 2 of my growth partners. Striker Digital specializes in SEO services specifically for local service businesses. Bodie and Andy, the 2 co-founders, have helped me get Bear Claw Land Services to the #1 search result on Google inside my state for my specific search term. If you want to learn more, visit strikerdigital.com. That's STRYKER-digital.com. Secondly, Local Service Marketers specializes in paid ads and unlimited content creation. I've been working with Josh since the beginning of Bear Claw, and all I've had to do is upload my content, photos and video, into a shared iCloud album or Google Drive album, and they handle everything else from there. Think YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all that is taken off of your plate. It saves you so much time as a local business owner. In doing so, you end up with a very professionally designed social media presence. After the presence is created, then a paid ad strategy can be implemented to help bring you more leads and win you more jobs. If you're interested in learning more, you can visit localservicemarketers.com.